right, guys, welcome to another episode of Elevated and Chill. It's your boy CJ on the scene, tapping back in with you guys for another session. Home team, you guys already know what we do here. We're here to laugh, chill, conversate, but most importantly, we're here to catch a vibe. And as we always do, let's kick it off with a check vibe check with me. This week was like kind of like a roller coaster week. A lot of ups and downs, and as the saying goes, a lot of ebbs and flows. But I think overall it was a productive week. Something that I didn't do that really kind of upset me was I didn't go to dance this week. Honestly, I was just tired. One and two, just had a splitting headache. Honestly, that kind of really what took me out. So didn't make it a dance. But I'm gonna make it a thing to go next week for sure. So you'll see me next week. Hear from me next week about dance. But definitely hit the gym. I think the gym sessions were pretty solid. I wouldn't say they were amazing, but they were solid. And overall, just getting back on my career certifications. I'm editing. I am editing. I am editing. And like I said, I know this has been a delay, so I apologize, home team, for the bottom of my heart. But definitely editing the photos, and hopefully I will get that out to you guys as soon as possible. I know, not trying to put a rush on it, but this is something that I personally want to get out to the world. So definitely putting an urgency on my end. Um, Home team, let me know how you guys are doing on your end. Drop in the comments, tap in, keep the conversation flowing for sure. But one thing that is I guess you could say boosting the serotonin levels is the weather. The weather is changing. Good weather is coming in. The winter was a bunch of cold weather, going from ranging from like 1 degree to like 2 degrees, 10 degrees, and now seeing the sun out, it being great weather, is really warming the heart and boosting the serotonin levels. Uh, so spring's on the rise. Everything is blooming. My trip up to upstate, a lot of the trees were starting to bloom, but now you can see a little bit of it more as things go on. Some spring activities. I guess the overall theme is, what exactly do we like to do in the springtime? For me personally, I love going to a nice brunch. I know I mentioned that in a couple episodes back, but nothing gets the catches the vibe more than going to like a brunch, having like waffles or French toast along with sangria. That to me is like beautiful, and especially because you do it early and then you have like the kind of like the rest of the day to catch up. Preferably do it on like a Saturday, or if Sunday you have the next day off, that would be lovely, because you don't want to go to work hungover. Not Don't want to promote that, but definitely just having a good time. That's really what brunch is for me. Uh, Also a lot of like other activities, like going to the botanical gardens, seeing like the flowers. And you could go to it during the winter time, but I think just going during the springtime gives it that like spring vibe. Picnics in the park, you can do that as well. I think these are all like kind of things that I personally like to do, and especially because I'm taking the photography thing a lot more seriously now. Getting back out there, catching flicks in the city, uh, you know, getting creative in those types of ways. Enjoying the overall ambiance of being by the water. I think you know, that's something that I also like doing is just being by the water, doing like kind of like water-ish activities. So I think that those are things that I really like doing a lot during the springtime. But you know, and honestly too, I'm just happy to like get like the spring, like the warm fits going. Like the button down shirt with the shorts, and like some like the spring colors. I like the spring vibe. I traditionally for me, I'm a black and blue type of guy. Wear a lot of black and wear a lot of blue, and I'll still probably wear that during the spring. But listen, man, I love to wear some pink. And granted, you could wear pink, you could wear these colors in the springtime as I mean the wintertime as well. But I just think in the spring, it just like kind of flows a little bit more better. And overall, like I think the spring just even though like it is the time where things are starting to bloom, I just think people are outside, the vibe is always right, and again, like the overall, the sun is shining, the the days get longer. So I just think like a lot of that just like adds more energy and to people. So home team, let me know what you guys do during the springtime. What do you guys look forward to? Drop some activities for me to do that I'll tap in and give you guys my feedback on. What do you guys, whether you guys live in a city, suburban area, rural area, wherever you guys are at, like what do you guys like to do during the springtime? What do you guys looking most forward to? The one thing that does come with spring, and I don't know if home team you guys do this, is spring cleaning. Spring team cleaning overall is just kind of like getting rid of a lot of the stuff that you compiled during the winter time or even like overtime. It doesn't have to be necessarily during the winter time. You know, is spring cleaning really necessary? When I was younger, I didn't really grasp the understanding of spring cleaning. But I think as I got older, I will say spring cleaning is definitely necessary. I think, you know, depending on who you are as a person, for me, I'm not necessarily a hoarder, but I do like to kind of like keep things that are kind of like, so to speak, like sentimental to me. But like keeping everything that's sentimental to you kind of like also creates kind of like clutter as well. So uh and like honestly, like just like also I'm a type of guy that like I do like to see things last. So you kind of like keep things thinking that eventually you'll find use of it, and eventually you kind of don't. So eventually it's like, all right, like I need to get rid of this. So I think sometimes during the spring, and you'll be surprised on what you have that like you're like, oh wow, like damn, like I got all these things I didn't even wear, use, and I think what I like to do personally is if I have like extra clothes that I'm not wearing or I haven't touched, I like to just give it back to like the church, and they'll donate it to people that actually need it. For me, it gives me like a sense of, all right, like if I'm not using it, then I feel like somebody else will, and somebody that actually could gain use out of it, and it could honestly achieve their necessities in life. And that's like the gratifying part of it as well. Just you know getting kind of rid of things, but also giving it to a person that is probably in much more need of it, and giving them that support in that way. So for me personally, like I said, I didn't think spring cleaning was necessary growing up, but I do see the validity in it and how people could say like, oh, like I'm doing a spring cleaning and stuff like that. So, yeah, I will be doing a spring cleaning, seeing what I need and what I don't need, and especially like kind of like swapping out the winter stuff with the summer clothes. You know, the moccasins and all that stuff are gonna be brought out. So, and like I think it also kind of like goes with the theme of kind of like growing and blooming and restarting. I think it gives you that first sense of like, all right, like I'm going through the season, with a fresh start, and you know, getting rid of that extra baggage that winter brought me but and now I'm going into the spring, a new person and stuff like that. So gives you almost that like not almost, but that refreshing feeling as well. So home team, let me know what you guys think of spring cleaning. Do you guys do it? What are kind of some ways that you guys go about it? Is it just like kind of like going through your stuff and seeing what you need, or is it like a specific process that you go through that kind of outlines what the spring cleaning is? Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comments. Uh Speaking about spring and just how spring is and the vibe, I think a lot of people enhance traveling during the springtime. Obviously like you would want to go traveling during the winter because you don't want to be here, you want to be on the beach and stuff like that. But I think going away during spring as well adds on to like that. Oh, I need to travel and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe that's a me sentiment, but I do think a lot of people do also enjoy going traveling during like the summer. I think probably it kind of is more apt to like people have kids and they want to travel during when their kids are off and stuff like that, which is fine as well. Spring break and all that stuff. I think kind of that aligns too. Well, for me personally, I also like traveling during the spring. The spring, I feel like you know I don't know, just again, it's more so like just a vibe thing. I think a lot of people just, figure, traveling and gaining experiences during this time is very, thought provoking and stuff like that. But I was reading kind of like an article, and it kind of outlined like traveling in general. Like what do you like doing during traveling and stuff like that. And they kind of labeled a term called skillcation, and it's kind of funny because like you hear like vacation or a staycation or whatever the case may be, but a skillcation is very thought provoking. Um, and basically like what a skillcation is, they kind of describe it as like learning something new while on vacation. Um, for me personally, uh, I'm always one to be like I love learning something new and like kind of learning, a skill or whatever. I think one thing that I would want to learn on a skill, I'm sorry, not a, I'm thinking of a skillcation home team. But on like if I'm going on if I'm traveling, is like learning more about the place that I'm going to, like the culture, the cuisine and all that stuff. In terms of like learning like a designated skill, like for example, like maybe like pottery or like scuba diving, like I don't know if like I would be more apt to learning a hardcore skill. I think like going on a vacation, you would want like some sort of like break from your everyday routine because as individuals we are constantly like learning and stuff like that. But I think for me, and I think maybe this is like probably like a just a general like across the board sentiment, is that I would love to learn about the culture, about where I'm going, how what's their everyday life, stuff like that. I think learning those things are is very like key when you're traveling. And you gain like a different insight on how people go about their life. But as far as like a hardcore skill, I don't really know if I'll be more apt to doing that. Maybe like take like, as like an activity, cool. But and I think like this kind of like is like more like a loose thing kind of thing. It's not really like, oh, like you gotta learn, take like a 4 week course of like, you know, how to be, how to do photography or whatever the case may be. I think I'm kind of like looking at it in a literal term, but if you kind of look at it loosely, yeah, like I would love to, learn like, from a cultural standpoint for sure. Um, I guess like kind of like the skillcation goes into like what do you want to do, like sight doing or sightseeing? And that's kind of like doing activities versus just like taking pictures. I think for myself, personally, I kind of like doing like a mixture of both, which kind of like adds on to like that skillcation kind of vibe. But like activities like, I would love to go, jet skiing and ATVing and stuff like that. And activities like again, like going on, tours about historical sites because I'm a history buff, or like, doing like little like cuisine tastings or like, wine tastings or whatever the case may be. I think that with a culmination because I like photography with taking pictures. I think people kind of just take pictures for like aesthetic of like social media pleasing and stuff like that. But I think like if you're taking pictures to share an experience while you're doing that activity, I think those two kind of go cold hand in hand. So definitely a little bit of both sights doing and sightseeing. You get best of both worlds for sure. And obviously like, having an activity like I would love to, do something like, if I'm going to like for example, if I'm going to like Italy, I would love to do like, a wine tasting, or maybe like a pasta making class, kind of like tasting different pastas, but also like getting to know like how pasta is being made and stuff like that. I think that kind of adds more of a foodcation. But it kind of like goes in hand with like learning a skill, but also like being kind of like learning the culture as well, and kind of making it kind of like, all right, like I'm also here to taste the food because like ultimately home team, I'm also here to like eat. That's something that I love doing during a vacation is eating. So it's just like, you're kind of killing a lot of, killing quote unquote two birds with one stone where like you're going and you're eating and tasting, tasting the cuisine of that country that you're in, but also like you're getting like learning about a skill or you're learning you're doing an activity that teaches you, I guess you could say, a skill. So yeah, I feel like people do things differently when they travel. Personally, I think like honestly, like if I'm on like an island, maybe I think I'll be more apt to like chill, want to be on the beach, and stuff like that. But I think if a country like Italy, you would want to learn what they do and stuff like that. So I guess more so like also like the destination kind of matters as well. But yeah, I think overall like when it comes to certain like activities, you kind of want or the destination, like you really want it to be where, all right, like maybe like I am chilling, there's room to do things, but I kind of ultimately want to chill. And also depends on where you're at in life. Like sometimes like, you legitimately just want to go on vacation to decompress and to chill. So, home team, let me know what you guys think. What's your thoughts on traveling? How do you guys travel? I definitely want to know. Give me some tips on what what is the itinerary when you guys go into travel? Is it to chill or is it to learn? Let me know what you guys think. Uh, the chilling ass segment. You guys are very in tune with this segment. Giving out definitely some great questions and stuff like that. About the just the landscape of what's going on. I kind of just take some of the questions and piece it into what I want to what the what are we gonna talk about for this episode. But chilling ass segment. First question: is spring real or is it just social media convincing us? Oh, I'm sorry. Run that back. Run that back. Completely sorry. I actually need to take a water break for that because I botched that up completely. But um, is spring energy real or is it just social media convincing us to get our life together? That was the question. No, I think spring energy is real. Like I said, mentioning prior, I think spring, with the sun coming out, longer days and stuff like that, I think it really adds into that, you know, real like, all right, like I want to kind of shake things up a little bit. I wanna grow and stuff like that. So I think I think the spring energy is 100% real. I think people don't realize it, but winter is like a lot of people do realize it. Winter is like that. You're in that gloom. You're home. It's cold. Like a lot of like, I guess you could say like quote unquote negative energy. But I think when spring comes around, like you get the trees are blooming, are growing. You know, there's people out more, and honestly too, like people being out could be also like, damn, like I don't really want to be outside because like people are outside and people do act kind of like crazy when the weather gets nice, but if you're in like a, let's say, like a park and you see like people like throwing the frisbee and people picnicking and people walking their dogs, and overall like the sun is out, the trees are full. I think like that just gives you like, damn, like life is good, you know what I mean? Like, and I think it just adds into that, simple way of like enjoying life. You kind of like sitting there, observing, you know, everything like feels like more fresh, like you feel like alive sense. So I think the spring energy is real. I don't think it's just like a social media thing. I think it's kind of like in tune with our like biology, you know what I mean? Like kind of like when spring hits, it's like that automatic like serotonin boost. Literally, like I feel it in myself, and I've spoken about this with a lot of people as well. Like they feel it too. Like one of the things is like, all right, like, you want to be outside and you want to, really want to create those like real life, experiences and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think spring energy is 100% real. And it's not just social media trying to convince us to get our life together, even though, you know, social media do kind of be saying that low key sometimes, but I think the spring energy is definitely real. That's a great question. Second question: what's a place that changed your perspective, not just your scenery? Wow, this is another thought provoking questions. You guys are really hitting it on the head today, for sure. I would say, for me personally, damn, a place that changed your perspective. I'm not gonna lie to you, Ghana. I think Ghana isn't one of those. I mean, it depends on how you define your definition of beauty in a destination. You know, I think when you go to an island, it's tropic, a lot of things, are, the beaches and stuff. And Ghana has these beaches, by the way, these beaches and and stuff like that. But I think like for me, when I went there and like being with, my brother's friends that, actually are from there, their parents live out there and stuff like that. So I kind of got to live like a firsthand kind of experience of what it's like to live in Ghana. I think you really see like beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, you know what I mean? And ways. I thought Ghana was beautiful because it definitely showed how rich and how authentic a culture could be. They take pride in their country and their culture. And it's beautiful and the history behind it, and what the people in Ghana had to go through and what they experienced and how they were able to overcome a lot of things, and a lot of historical, you know importance events that happened in Ghana, and how where they're at now. You know, I think like you kind of gain a different like perspective, and it changes your mentality on things, on where you live at. Could be completely different than how somebody else is living, but from both from both ends, you get to see like, all right, like this person enjoys living here because of how rich and how authentic things are here. You know what I mean? And I think ultimately that is what beauty is being authentic and being genuine. I don't think I don't think I don't think traveling should consistently consist of being on the beach and drinking. And for some people it is. For me, you know, it's thought provoking. It's thought provoking things like going to Ghana and going to, the different museums and going to the different places and being, kind of like a local and kind of understanding like, damn, like this is what, life is here and stuff like that. It isn't the same as the United States. It's not. It's completely not the same. And like that's what makes it beautiful is that, it's not the same, but people still have that joy and that grind and that hustle and stuff like that. I think that's what makes things I think that's what makes it beautiful. So, like I think that's really one place that really changed my perspective on things, to be honest. Like I think going to Ghana, it really changed something in me for the better, and it helped me really analyze things from a different kind of lens. And I think that's what traveling is for. It's for you to understand people and to help you grow so you can understand like, all right, like, damn, like I do have it good here, but at the same time, like they also do have it good here as well, but in their own way. So home team, like let me know what you guys think about that. I think that's a very thought provoking, as well as the spring energy. Like, let me know about that as well. But wait, we do have one more question. Do not go anywhere. We have one more question. These are great questions, by the way. And like I said, home team, keep it coming. That's what the chilling ass segment is to ask questions that what's on your mind, and for myself, and for you guys to bring real conversations and discussions about these things, and for us to have a genuine like I say, catch a genuine vibe. But third question, um this is really like an interesting question as well, because it's kind of what we're going to talk about later on in the episode as well. But uh what is harder, starting your fitness journey or staying consistent long term? Wow. And the reason why I'm saying wow is because like it really depends on where you're at in life. I think if you're a person that never regularly, started working out, I think it really could be both. I think it could be hard starting the fitness journey and, also staying consistent long term. Um, from my perspective, for me personally, I think because I always have like this insight of like, I wanna be healthy, and I wanna, do whatever I can to like, be able to, chase after, my grandchildren and stuff like that. I wanna live that healthy life. I think for me, and is more so like being consistent long term. And not saying that I haven't been consistent, because like, I think going to the gym, I've been consistent. But being straightforward, there's some weeks where I'm like, damn, like I didn't go to the gym, or I only went like 2 times. And I think that's me just expecting more of myself, and me, having that high level expectation. But I think for me, it's like, a lot of, life be lifing, and like, sometimes like the gym gets put on the back burner. So I think it's just like kind of like staying consistent with like, yo, like, and not that I need to go to the gym, but I get to go to the gym and I enjoy going to the gym, and it kind of helps with the mental health and stuff like that. Um, but I think for others, it could be a toss up between starting it in the initially, and you know also staying consistent. Like it depends on where you're at in life. I think for me, again, like starting it was never really the issue. Like I could always be like, all right, I'm gonna go to the gym. But I just think like kind of like staying consistent long term, and what I mean by consistent long term is like going consistently showing up day in, day in, day out. And I think that's kind of what I struggle with. And I gotta also understand like, things happen, life be life, and like I said. But Yeah, that's a great question, especially because it kind of like it kind of brings up the overall topic of exercising and stuff like that. So yeah, home team. Let me know what you guys think about that question. Like what's harder, starting your fitness journey, or staying consistent long term, and as well as the other two questions as well. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Again, those are great questions that you guys are asking. Keep it up. I love this engagement. And yeah, and like that last question was very thought provoking about exercising and generally speaking, and I kind of really wanted to bring that topic of discussion up because it's kind of something that has really been a part of my life and as well as my current where I am now. But yeah, like exercising, you know, consistency over intensity, where what like is doing less more, or is it kind of like just sticking with it? Um, I think for me, I think generally speaking, I think being consistent is what is better because like I go by the thing of quality versus quantity. Like I feel like if you're going super duper hard and I think you're necessarily gonna get burnt out and be like, nah, like, I don't want to do the gym long term. But do I think like you do have to have keep a level of intensity in your workout? Yeah, of course. Like for me, I like to try. I do this thing where like I do incremental growth, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in previous episodes, but to elaborate more in depthly is, for me, if I'm doing like for example like a squat, and then I'm doing like a 45 on both sides. Each rep I do, or each set, I'm sorry, each set I do, I'll add like at least like 10 pounds more. So for me, that's what kind of what incrementally means is like adding, more weight as you go. And like that last weight, you're kind of it gives you that kind of psychological thing where it's like, all right, like I'm at the last rep, right? And damn, I got more weight. And it's kind of like I gotta get through this. I gotta test myself. It kind of like challenge you in that moment. And I think like that's kind of like where I get my intensity from. But overall, like if you're hitting it hard all the time, I think you're kind of gonna burn out and kind of like lose the love for going to the gym. And like again, like people are different. Like people like that intensity, and that's fine. Like, if that works for them, sure. But I think for me personally, I like doing things consistently, but having like a certain level of intensity within my workouts. So yeah, I think consistency, and like I said, I mentioned in priors, like is the number one thing. You always want to be consistent, and you gotta find that level that works for you, and those workouts that work for you. I do also agree on like switching the workout out like every like 4 to 6 weeks, just because your body, like you don't gotta like change your regimen. I think like throwing in like a new exercise that challenges you. I think that's also a level of like bringing out your intensity and stuff like that. Challenging yourself to do a new exercise, and you might do it wrong that first time, but again, like it's really like you could say it's the craftsmanship. You know what I mean? Like of doing something different and adding something in your repertoire, and it could accomplish something long term for you, whether it be mobility, strength, or whatever. um this is something I do not do, and a lot of people do it, and I give them props, as well. Is getting your steps in. Getting your steps in. So the idea is like, is walking a real exercise? And to be honest, it is. You know, Obviously it's not something that you're gonna like burn crazy amounts of calories, but you can, depending on how much walking you do. But I think walking and getting your steps in, it just overall like it gives you that movement, the movement of your blood, getting out. And again, it's getting nice outside, so like you want to go for a walk and enjoy the scenery, and you're seeing a lot of different things and stuff like that. So I think getting your steps in is very pivotal. Home team, this is something that you guys should definitely do. Is really and something that I need to do as well. Is definitely get your steps in for sure. It's low impact. Doesn't really take a lot to do. My mom does likes to walk. And I think it just keeps your mobility going. It's not something that should be shined upon like, oh well, walking is like, nah, I think walking, it definitely helps the blood flow, definitely helps circulate, and it could be decompressing. Like it's like, damn, I'm gonna go for a walk right now. Like you're stressed out at work, and you on your lunch break. I'm gonna go catch some sun, touch some grass, and I'm gonna go for a walk, man. Like I need a you might come back from that walk like, damn, like I reflected on myself. Maybe I was out of character, or damn, like it changes your perspective, like in that and in those 45 minutes or that hour that you walked. So, and it does burn some calories too. Like if you focus on calories, it does burn some calories as well. So, I think walking is a real exercise. But there's also other things that you can do that's kind of considered like cardio that you could do to also get like that calorie burn or whatever. Like I dance, I think, you know, I don't think I know like dancing is something that burns a lot of calories as well. So I think, doing that could give you that mobility and that consistent movement. It's a little bit more demanding than just walking, but still in all, it's still you're getting that cardio. You're not putting like a lot of like stress on benching or squatting. Those are kind of more high impact exercises that could, depending on if you do it right or wrong, could really affect you. I know me, for me personally, I kind of took a little bit of a break from benching and doing weights because like I felt like I felt like, bone, like I just felt like things weren't like kind of like meshing well. And I think like taking that time out to like do cardio, or, take a break from benching helps your body kind of rest, and your muscles relax and your bones relax as well. You can do biking. That biking is something that I love to do as well. Again, when I was during COVID, I was biking and taking pictures and stuff like that, and I think that kind of added like a exercise and a creativity too. So you kind of combine the two. But a lot of people go biking. They do it consistently. They go on like trails and stuff like that. So biking is another way. But also like hiking. Like hiking is another thing too. Like you're burning calories. But you're also like in nature. So I think like these types of like cardio things are very like beneficial, and it could really help you like kind of long term with like mobility and stuff like that. Listen, as long as you're getting out there and you're circulating your blood and all that stuff, I think those are things that matters the most. You don't necessarily have to go to the gym and lift like a lot of weight or move a lot of weight. I think there's other ways to be physically healthy and involved with yourself, other than just strictly going to the gym and walking and dancing, or playing basketball, or doing sports in general, or biking or hiking. Those two Ryan, lol. Those two Ryan, that's a quick bar right there, but I think those are kind of like ways to like get your body active and stuff like that. And exercising in general, it gives you a nice, mental health focus. Sometimes like for me, I just had a rough day at work, or rough weekend or whatever, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm just gonna go ahead and work out. Whether it's lifting weights, or playing basketball, you kind of get that like, yo, all right, I'm getting my energy out. I'm getting this frustration out and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? When you go, that extra like, that chip on your shoulder when you had a rough day and you go to the gym, man, that thing be that energy be thinking like, yo, I'm about to be on that. I'm gonna take like a 100-pound dumbbells, and I'm gonna do the chest presses. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm about to go to that squat rack, and I'm about to squat 545s. Like, I'm kind of being a little dramatic, but having that chip on your shoulder and that energy, it kind of helps you want to achieve, like, uh your own PRs in the gym, or if you're playing basketball, like, do new moves, or I'm going there and I'm just like, I'm trying to kill my defender, or whatever the case may be. Or if you're going biking, like, I'm a bike this long trail, or or if I'm a walk, I'm gonna explore a new area. I think when you have like a lot of going on, like, I think just exercising gives you that. And when you finish, it's like, damn, wow, I just exercise. I feel amazing about myself. So I think just exercising gives you, again, like that mental edge, that you need. And especially, like, if you do it in the morning. I think if you exercise in the morning, it starts your day off right, because damn, like, all right, like, you feel the sense of, like, I did something for myself. Not like, oh, like, I'm going to work and I gotta do my job, or all right, like, I'm taking the kids, and you feel like if you exercise in the morning, you do something for yourself. But anytime you get a chance to exercise, like, it's still a win for you. It's still something that you could feel accomplished, that you did for yourself as well. And like, a lot of people go to the gym, and they really focus on the physical results, of, like, damn, like, oh, I didn't drop this amount of weight. And it's like, again, it's a journey. It's a journey. Like, you know, I've seen a lot of transitions that I went through in my own journey, and, of working out and stuff like that, and exercising. I went from being, in my opinion, like, having a lot of weight, that I was just like, I can't do this no more, to, like, losing, being really, slim, you know, gaining a lot of muscle. I seen, a lot of, like, ebbs and flow in my fitness journey. You just it's an evolution process. You keep cracking at it. You try to get better every day. Definitely don't focus on the results. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's definitely all about the journey, for sure. It's all about the journey, and how well you go about things, and how well you could, you know, how well you could really do something long term, that, one, it gives you a mental edge, but as well as, it also helps you stay in shape and stuff like that. So, yeah, home team, let me know what you guys think about, exercising. Drop some activities that you guys like to do, that kind of helps you exercise. Yeah, and we are at Elevated and Chill, a uh as long as with the mental side of things, we want to, give you guys the best resources, and the best, you know opportunities, as well, to, work on your physical being and stuff like that. That's also, very much important, because it keeps you going, and we want to keep that community going. So, yeah, drop the activities that you guys like to do, for exercising. What are your overall thoughts on exercising? It doesn't have to be going to the gym, but overall, as the topic in general. So, speaking about journey, I know you guys need it, every day, every week. Every day, every week, whatever. Elevated advice, as always, sponsored by CoStar. CoStar, patiently waiting for the check. Need that check for sure. The contract, the check, no matter. But yeah, CoStar, we here, man, we here. But elevated advice for, to get you guys, through the week, and continue your journeys. I know we spoke a lot about a lot of different things, mental and all that stuff. But my elevated advice is, you have zero self control right now, and I feel like that's so imperative to my life right now, because I indeed do not. Um, yeah, I mean, like, I think it's imperative to understand that, like, you know, having self control is kind of like is something that you kind of need to instill from within. I think you kind of like lose your train of thought of like, yo, I'm going through this, and you just start kind of like being like sporadic and doing things that kind of like detrimental. Again, like I told you guys home team that I was going through. I was going through it, going through the ringer, and I think during that time, like a lot of like my usual discipline kind of got thrown out the window. And I think getting back to like, having that self-control, being very like consistent in what you do and not losing sight of who you are is very important. So, I think this right here is like you have zero self-control right now. It's not really like a negative statement. I think it's more so to bring us back to like, all right, like you're not. This is where you're normally at, but right now you're here, and you need to get back on track. And I think that's what this kind of elevated device is saying is literally just get back on track, get back to who you are as a person, uh, who you are to others, and where you are showing up, and being consistent, being disciplined, having those conversations with yourself. It's getting back to those things, go those ground core values that you have, that you kind of like preach about. Go back to those habits, and don't let the bad habits and the negativity get to you, because if the negativity gets to you, then it's just gonna ultimately throw you in a spiral. Like I call it, take you to the laundromat. You know, take you for it in the washing machine, dry you up, and now you all messed up and stuff like that. So keep the positivity going. Remember your self control in all aspects. No matter if a third party is testing you, and trying to get you out of character, like, listen, this is who I am as a person, and I'm not gonna go and be a part of that energy. So it's really remembering who you are as a person. So, and yeah, I took some time because, I thought like kind of like I thought it meant like control in life, but then I was like, oh, it meant self control, and I was like, oh, maybe I read this wrong. But it is definitely imperative to my life now, judging by the things that I've been going through and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my elevated advice. Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comments. Like I said, keep the conversation moving forward, because what you may have for elevated advice might be something that somebody else in the comments might need and hear. So again, like, we want to uplift people and stuff like that. That's the whole purpose of the podcast, is to definitely elevate each and every one of us. But also, we here to chill and have a good vibe, catch a good vibe. You know what I mean? But yeah, keep the conversation moving. As always, you can find us on YouTube every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time. For the East Coast and West Coasters. Subscribe, hit the bell, and as always, stay locked in with us. Until next time, I'll see you guys on the flip side. I'll catch ya.